Hello, I'm Dr. William Schlosser. You know me as an economist. You may also know me as an ecologist. But more than anything, you're going to know me as an educator. I'm Dr. Bill, and I welcome you to my classroom. Welcome to Chapter 1 of Microeconomics. In this chapter, we will explore the foundation of how individuals, businesses, and markets interact to make decisions. You'll be introduced to core concepts like scarcity, incentives, and trade-offs that guide all economic choices. Along the way, we will examine how these ideas apply to the real-world examples, such as healthcare, and see how they connect to the broader principles of economics. By the end of this chapter, you'll have the tools to start thinking like an economist and have a better understanding of the world around you. Let's consider Pullman Regional Hospital as an example to explore how microeconomic principles apply to healthcare decisions. Traditionally, many doctors in the United States have worked in private practices they own individually or with a small group of other doctors. However, in recent years, an increasing number of doctors have chosen to work as salaried employees of hospitals. This shift reflects the key microeconomic decisions influenced by costs, incentives, and trade-offs. For instance, the soaring costs of healthcare have led insurance companies and government programs to reduce payments to doctors for treating patients. This reduction in revenue makes hospital employment more attractive because it offers a steady income and eliminates certain risks that come from owning a private practice. One example of these costs is the investment required to comply with regulations like those introduced by the Affordable Care Act, ACA, in 2010. This legislation requires healthcare providers receiving Medicare payments to adopt electronic health records. For small private practice, the cost of acquiring the necessary technology and managing new paperwork can be prohibitive. By choosing hospital employment, doctors can avoid these costs while focusing on patient care. From a microeconomic perspective, these decisions represent trade-offs. Doctors weigh the costs of maintaining independent private practice against the benefits of a stable salary and reduced administrative burden in hospital employment. Hospitals, in turn, make decisions about employing doctors based on their own cost structures and the potential to improve patient care efficiently. Those individual decisions, by doctors, hospitals, and even patients, are the essence of microeconomics. They reflect how scarce resources are allocated, how incentives shape behavior, and how markets respond to policy changes. Pullman Regional Hospital's choices and those of the doctors and patients it serves illustrate the intricate interplay of supply and demand, costs, and benefits within the healthcare system. Economics is fundamentally about making choices to achieve goals. People must make these choices because sources are limited while their wants are virtually unlimited. This situation, known as scarcity, forces individuals and societies to prioritize and make trade-offs. Scarcity occurs when the resources available are insufficient to fulfill all human desires and needs. Economics, therefore, is the study of how people and societies navigate the trade-offs to attain their goals. An economic model is a simplified representation of reality that helps us analyze and understand complex real-world economic situations. These models are essential tools for economists as they provide the framework for making predictions, formulating policies, and understanding economic behavior. Scarcity is a fundamental economic condition where unlimited wants exceed the limited resources available to fulfill those wants. Every economy around the world, whether centrally planned, mixed, or free enterprise, must confront this challenge. These economic systems each approach the solution differently, but all share the need to decide what to produce, how to produce it, and for whom production is generated. Scarcity refers to a naturally occurring limitation on the resources that cannot be replenished. For instance, natural resources like oil or fresh water are inherently scarce because they are finite and cannot be produced on demand. To understand these concepts a little better, let's explore what causes shortages. What factors lead to a situation where the demand outstrips supply? Well, we might need an expert on supply and demand curves to explain this. Let's take a short walk with Buzz Lightyear, who will help us delve deeper into these ideas.
And this is the Buzz Lightyear aisle. Back in 1995, short-sighted retailers did not order enough dolls to meet demand.
Hey, Buzz!
Halt! Who goes there? Quit clowning around and get in the car!
As Buzz Lightyear and tour guide Barbie illustrated, a shortage occurs when the quantity demanded of a particular good exceeds the quantity supplied at a particular price. Shortages are often temporary and can be resolved through market adjustments, such as changes in price or production. In contrast, scarcity is a permanent condition resulting from the fact that resources are limited and cannot meet all human wants. For example, while the shortage of Buzz Lightyear dolls was temporary, the scarcity of natural resources like water and oil is a long-term issue. Scarcity is a fundamental concept in economics, and understanding its role in everyday decision-making is essential. At this farmer's market, we see individuals making choices based on their preferences, budgets, and the availability of goods. Scarcity means that resources, such as land, water, and labor, are limited, and producers must decide how to allocate these resources efficiently to meet consumer demands. For example, a farmer may choose to grow strawberries instead of tomatoes because strawberries yield higher profits or require fewer inputs. Consumers, on the other hand, face trade-offs as they decide how to spend their limited income. Should they buy organic vegetables, which may cost more, or conventional ones to stretch their budgets out? These decisions illustrate how scarcity drives choices and trade-offs at the individual and firm level. While scarcity is permanent, shortages are temporary and can often be addressed through price adjustments. For example, if demand for fresh berries increases due to holiday weekend, farmers may raise prices to balance supply and demand. These market mechanisms ensure resources are allocated efficiently, even in the face of temporary imbalances. In this microeconomics class, we will delve into how individual consumers and firms make decisions, and how these decisions interact in the marketplace. We will explore questions such as, how do consumers decide what goods and services to buy? What determines the prices of these goods and services? How do firms decide on the quantity of goods to produce and the prices which to sell them? We will also examine the impact of government regulations on individual markets and consumer behavior, and understand the effects of different market structures like monopolies and competition. This class will provide you with the tools to analyze and understand the economic forces at play in everyday transactions. In economics, we generally assume that people are rational. This means that individuals use all available information to achieve their goals. Rational consumers and firms carefully weigh the benefits and costs of each action to make the best possible decisions. For example, consider Microsoft. A company doesn't randomly choose the price for its Windows software. Instead, it selects the price that it believes will maximize its profits. This decision is based on extensive research and analysis, ensuring that the chosen price aligns with their overall business goals. Economists emphasize that consumers and firms consistently respond to economic incentives. Many rational decisions made by people and companies are influenced by our government through taxation, production incentives, and regulations on business operations. Incentives are seen in government efforts to decrease the costs for production to make certain goods, thereby lowering the costs for consumers. Consider the example of increased obesity rates in America. Over the past couple of decades, several factors have contributed to this trend. The price of fast food has decreased relative to healthier options. Non-active entertainment has improved significantly, and the increased availability of healthcare and insurance has protected people against the consequences of unhealthy choices. As you navigate through your daily decisions, be mindful of the incentives created to influence how you consume goods and services. Understanding these incentives can help you make more informed choices. We use the word marginal to mean an extra or additional benefit or cost from making a decision. The optimal decision is to continue any activity to the point where the marginal benefit equals the marginal cost. Marginal analysis involves comparing marginal benefits and marginal costs to make informed decisions. Consider this example. Should you watch an extra hour of TV or study instead? Economists analyze such decisions by comparing the marginal cost, MC, and marginal benefit, MB. The marginal cost might include the time you could have spent studying, while the marginal benefit might be the relaxation and enjoyment you gain from watching TV. This concept of marginal analysis is a cornerstone of economics and extends to many other areas of study. You've already conducted marginal analysis in college when deciding how many credits to carry this term. Was the marginal cost of taking one more class worth the marginal benefit of completing it? The costs are not just the additional tuition fees, but also your most scarce resource of all, your time. By understanding and applying marginal analyses, you are thinking like an economist. Many times, we do not recognize all the incentives we respond to. Sometimes our decisions seem rather irrational when viewed in hindsight. Could it be possible that a great healthcare system would encourage a ghastly unhealthy obesity epidemic? In several weeks, we will study the healthcare system of the USA and compare it to healthcare in other countries as we look into unanticipated consequences of the system we have. Obesity is not the only complicating effect of our systems. As we will learn, costs to the USA economy far exceed the costs witnessed in other countries. Again, cost considerations are not just about the money we spend. It includes the marginal costs of unanticipated obesity in the USA. Every society must grapple with a fundamental economic problem. We have limited resources but unlimited wants. This imbalance forces us to make trade-offs. A trade-off means that producing more of one good or service requires producing less of another. This is the essence of scarcity. For instance, if a country decides to allocate more resources to healthcare, it may have to cut back on education or infrastructure. Every choice has an opportunity cost, which is the value of the next best alternative foregone. Society, therefore, must answer three crucial questions to manage these trade-offs effectively. What goods and services will be produced? This decision depends on the needs and wants of the population, influenced by consumer preferences and available resources. How will the goods and services be produced? This involves choosing the most efficient production methods, considering factors like technology, labor, and capital. Who will receive the goods and services produced? Well, this addresses the distribution of output, ensuring that the resources are allocated fairly and efficiently among the population. These fundamental questions guide the economic decisions and shape our world, balancing limited resources with the myriad of needs and desires of society. Deciding what goods and services to produce is a fundamental question for any economy. This decision is shaped by the choices of consumers, firms, and the government. and each choice carries an opportunity cost. For example, if the government decides to increase funding for space exploration, the opportunity cost might be the potential advancements in cancer research that are foregone. This trade-off results from the scarcity of resources. We simply can't do everything at once. Producers typically focus on making goods and providing services that they believe will generate the most revenue. The decision to produce one item over another hinges on the opportunity cost or the value of the alternative not chosen. Consider the mission to Mars versus funding cancer research. Our limited human capital and financial resources mean that we must carefully weigh the trade-offs and select the best path forward. By understanding these trade-offs and opportunity costs, we can better appreciate the complexities involved in economic decision-making. Firms face important decisions about how to produce the goods and services they offer. These decisions often involve trade-offs between using more workers or more machines. For instance, a music producer might choose to hire a great singer and use standard production techniques, or hire a mediocre singer and rely on auto-tune to enhance the vocals. Similarly, firms must adapt to changes in labor costs. If the cost of manufacturing labor rises, a company might switch to production techniques that use more machinery and fewer workers. Alternatively, they might move their production to a country with cheaper labor costs. These decisions are driven by financial incentives, such as tax benefits or employing more workers, or higher profits from offshoring production. Each choice impacts the overall cost and efficiency of production, illustrating the complex considerations firms must navigate in the marketplace. In the United States, the distribution of goods and services depends largely on income distribution. Higher incomes typically allow individuals access to more goods and services. This raises important policy questions about whether and how the government should intervene to make income distribution more equal. The debate over income equality is significant and ongoing. For instance, should high school lifeguard earn the same as a medical doctor who has spent many years in education and training? This question highlights the complexities of income distribution. Discussions about income equality often involve marginal tax rates, which are designed to be lower for low-income earners and higher for high-income earners. These policies aim to distribute income, but opinions vary widely on how much redistribution is appropriate and fair. Income equality issues frequently appear in the media, but it's essential to understand the underlying principles and implications. By examining these debates, we can gain a deeper understanding of how economic policies impact our society. Societies organize their economies in different ways, mainly as centrally planned, market, or mixed economies. In a centrally planned economy, the government takes on the role of deciding how economic resources are allocated. This means the government determines what to produce, how to produce it, and who receives the goods and services. Today, only a few small countries such as Cuba and North Korea still operate with fully centrally planned economies. In contrast, a market economy relies on the decisions of households and firms interacting in markets to allocate resources. The income of an individual in a market economy is determined by the payments received for goods and services sold. Typically, individuals with more extensive training and longer working hours earn higher incomes. During the Great Depression of the 1930s, the high rates of unemployment and business bankruptcies led to increased government intervention in the economy of the United States and other market economies. This intervention aimed to raise incomes for the elderly, the sick, and those with limited skills. Over the years, government roles have expanded to protect the environment, promote civil rights, and provide medical care to low-income individuals and the elderly. Given the significant role of government in these economies, many economists argue that it is more accurate to describe the economies of the United States, Canada, and Western Europe as mixed economies. In a mixed economy, Most economic decisions result from the interactions of buyers and sellers in markets, but the government also plays a crucial role in resource allocation. Market economies tend to be more efficient than centrally planned economies. One key aspect of this efficiency is productive efficiency, which occurs when goods or services are produced at the lowest possible cost. You might have encountered this concept in various scenarios, such as in the selection of the low-cost bidder for a city park project, a bridge development, or even a space program contractor. For instance, the selection of contractors for space missions like those involving the astronauts, such as John Glenn, often involves choosing the option that delivers the best results at the lowest cost. This is a practical example of productive efficiency in action. Allocative efficiency is a state of the economy in which production aligns with consumer preferences. Specifically, every good or service is produced up to the point where the last unit provides a marginal benefit to society equal to the marginal cost of producing it. This concept is clearly illustrated in the variety of cars available in the market. Each consumer has a unique preference for their dream car, and the manufacturers respond by offering a wide range of makes and models. This ensures that production meets the diverse needs and desires of consumers, exemplifying allocative efficiency in action. Voluntary exchange is a fundamental aspect of market economies, where transactions occur only when both the buyer and the seller are made better off by the exchange. In America, voluntary exchange is a reality we experience daily. It influences the jobs we choose, the goods and services we purchase, and how we allocate our resources. This principle underpins the efficiency of market economies, ensuring that transactions benefit all parties involved. As Milton Friedman highlighted, this concept traces back to Adam Smith's idea that voluntary exchanges lead to mutual benefits, driving economic efficiency and growth. In the 1990s, I lived and worked in the newly independent states of the former Soviet Union, where 8 decades of a centrally planned economy had existed. There was one brand of car on the streets, the Moskvich, which made to a uniform design and available in just 3 colors. What a selection! This is a prime example of allocative inefficiency. It wasn't about what consumers wanted, it was about what the centrally planned economy provided. The limited variety and lack of consumer choice highlights how centrally planned economies often fail to meet the diverse needs and preferences of their populations. Inefficiency arises from various sources. Sometimes governments reduce efficiency by interfering with voluntary exchange in markets. For instance, the production of some goods can damage the environment when firms ignore the costs of environmental damage. In such cases, government intervention can actually increase efficiency. However, society may not always find an efficient economic outcome to be desirable. Many people prefer outcomes they consider fair or equitable, even if these outcomes are less efficient. Equity refers to the fair distribution of economic benefits, and programs designed to increase equity may reduce efficiency. Life is full of trade-offs, and balancing efficiency with equity is one of the significant challenges in economic policy. Ronald Reagan once said, quote, "We who live in free market societies believe that growth, prosperity, and ultimately human fulfillment are created from the bottom up, not the government down." End quote. This quote encapsulates the belief in the power of individual and market-driven growth, while acknowledging the potential need for government intervention to ensure fairness and address market failures. Economists are known for using graphs, charts, formulas, and models to explain our concepts. We follow the scientific method used by other scientists in a wide range of studies. This short-list approach to solving and explaining complex situations requires simplification and streamlining. We consider models most effective when they aid understanding and increase awareness of complex situations. Consider how the model can be used in real-life situations, how we can test its accuracy, and how modeled results respond to changes in key economic variables. An economic variable is something measurable that can have different values, such as the incomes of doctors. A hypothesis in an economic model is a statement that must be correct or incorrect about the economic variable. To test a hypothesis, we analyze statistics on the relevant variables. Economists accept and use an economic model if it leads to hypotheses that are confirmed by statistical analysis. Basically, we accept them if they work. Positive analysis is concerned with what is. Normative analysis is considered as what ought to be. This is a nexus of economic thinking, as many people confuse statements of what should be and what is. When people make statements like wages should be higher, we quickly identify the word should to see it as a normative analysis statement. A stable economist will make statements like, quote, wages made higher by 3% can increase tax collections by the U.S. Treasury by 2%, end quote. Now we have positive analysis result, and we can celebrate the accuracy of this statement. Normative statements cannot really be debated because they are based on opinions, not facts. Because economics studies the actions of individuals, it is often considered a social science. Economics considers human behavior in every context, not just in the context of business. Economists have played an important role in the formation of government policies in areas such as the environment, healthcare, and poverty. This does not limit the scope of issues economists approach. It puts understanding to the opportunities it conveys.
Aerial coverage of today's game is provided by MetLife. These beautiful scenics. Gillette Stadium. On the 10-yard line after an 8 and punt by Jacksonville. It's 1st and 10. This is Edelman. Quick and...
We look at the big picture from the blimp and call it macroeconomics. When the camera goes to field play coverage, it is microeconomics. You can think of microeconomics as household decisions made in local markets, and considerations of how government decisions affect our choices. This is where we are going in this class. Before we move on, let's summarize the key takeaways from this section. Microeconomics focuses on the smaller scale of the economy, examining how individual households and firms make choices, interact in markets, and how their choices are influenced by government policies. On the other hand, macroeconomics looks at the big picture, studying the economy as a whole. This includes major topics such as inflation, unemployment, and economic growth. Understanding both perspectives is critical as they are interconnected, and together they provide a comprehensive view of economic activity. Now, let's apply what we've learned. Think about recent news stories. Can you identify any that involve macroeconomic issues, such as changes in the national employment rates or inflation? What about stories that deal with microeconomic decisions, like a company launching a new product or changes in household spending habits? Additionally, consider how government policies can impact both macro and microeconomic aspects of the economy. For example, a new tax law might affect national economic growth, a macroeconomics issue, and also influence individual consumer behavior, a microeconomic issue. Discuss these examples with your peers and deepen your understanding. Let's look at a real-world example to illustrate both macroeconomic and microeconomic perspectives. Consider a government stimulus package aimed at boosting the economy. From a macroeconomic viewpoint,
we analyze how this stimulus impacts overall economic growth and unemployment rates. We ask questions like, quote, does the stimulus lead to higher GDP, or does it reduce national unemployment rates, end quote. From a microeconomic perspective, we focus on how the stimulus affects individual businesses and households. We consider questions like, how do small businesses benefit from tax breaks? Or how do families use direct payments from the stimulus? This example helps us see the dual impact of economic policies on both a large scale and a personal level. Across all topics of economics, you will discover we use certain terminology that other studies use. When I talk of depression, I am generally not speaking about a mood or mental state. I am talking about a slowdown of the economy, like the USA experienced in the 1930s. Shared terminology reaches into accounting when we talk of capital, investments, and technology. When you hear an economist talking of the demand, it is not a rude request made with urgency. It is about how buyers' wants are matched with their willingness to pay. You'll collect a broad understanding of how and when to apply these expressions in the discussions that you are involved in. Expand your understanding with accurate terminology and meaning. In economics, technology is a key driver of productivity and growth. When we discuss technology, we're not just talking about gadgets or software. We are referring to any method or process that helps transform inputs into outputs. For example, consider a bakery. Traditional methods might involve hand-kneading dough, but with technological advancements, automated mixers and ovens can produce bread faster and with consistent quality. Capital in economics is not just money. It includes all manufactured resources used in production. Think of a car factory, equipped with advanced robotics. These machines, buildings, and tools are considered capital because they help produce cars more efficiently. Understanding capital is crucial for analyzing how economies grow and develop. When economists talk about investment, they mean more than just saving money. Investment refers to acquiring assets that can generate income in the future, like stocks, bonds, or real estate. For instance, buying shares in a technology company can provide dividends and potential capital gains, contributing to personal and economic growth. Demand in economics is about consumers' willingness and ability to purchase goods or services at various prices. It's not just about wanting something, but being ready to pay for it. For example, the high demand for the latest smartphone model drives the price up because many consumers are willing to pay a premium and own it. In economics, precise terminology is essential. Misunderstanding terms like depression can lead to confusion. In economics, a depression refers to a severe or prolonged downturn in economic activity, not a mental state. By mastering these terms, you can engage more effectively in discussions and analyses, enhancing your understanding and contributions.
Applying economic terminology accurately is crucial for meaningful discussions and sound decision-making. When we discuss inflation or a recession, we need to use these terms precisely to analyze economic conditions correctly. This clarity helps in developing policies and strategies to address economic issues effectively.
In our everyday lives, we are rather accustomed to visualization aids. We watch TV, play video games, and read books and maps. These are all different ways of reducing the real world to something graphically descriptive. We do not show everything of the real world on a map. We only show what is important to what we want to know, like a road, a park, or a point of interest. Similarly, economic models reduce the complexity of the real world to highlight essential details. We use graphs, charts, and models a lot in economics as tools to describe concepts that convey important findings. Values for an economic variable are often displayed on a bar graph, or a pie chart. In this case, panel A shows market share data for the U.S. automobile industry as a bar graph, where the market share of each group of firms is represented by the height of its bar. Panel B displays the same information as the pie chart, where the market share of each group of firms is represented by the size of the slice of the pie. Often, we display data as it was observed through time. In this case, it is Ford Motor Company sales each year for 11 years. Panel A put the line on the chart starting at 0 sales climbing to above 7 million cars sold. Panel B shows the same data, but truncates the first 4.5 million sales to give more resolution to the line's changes. The data are identical, but if you did not pay attention to the y-axis values, your understanding would be skewed. Hey, watch out for this one. It happens a lot in our lives, not only in economics. Figure shows a two-dimensional grid on which we measure the price of pizza along the vertical axis, or y-axis, and the quantity of pizza sold per week along the horizontal axis, or x-axis. Each point on the grid represents one of the price and quantity combinations used in the table. By connecting the points on a line, we can better illustrate the relationship between the two variables. We regularly use tabular data like you might enter into your spreadsheet program and then graph it to display what the numbers look like. The information is identical, but seeing it both ways helps you explain your findings to yourself and to others. We can calculate the slope of a line as the change on the value of a variable on the y-axis divided by the change in the variable on the x-axis. This is often referred to as the rise over run because the slope of a straight line is constant. We can use any 2 points in the figure to calculate the slope of a line. For example, when the price of pizza decreases from $14 to $12, the quantity of pizza demanded increases from 55 per week to 65 per week. So the slope of this line equals the change in price, -2, divided by the change in quantity, 10, or -0.2. In mathematical terms, we denote the price as M equals delta P divided by delta Q. Here, delta represents the change in the variable. For our example, M equals 14 minus 12 divided by 55 minus 65, or -2 divided by 10, or -0.2. This negative slope indicates the inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded, which is typical for a demand curve. In economics, we often need to analyze how multiple variables interact. Let's consider the demand curve for pizza. The demand curve illustrates the relationship between the price of pizzas and the quantity of pizzas demanded, holding constant other factors that might affect consumer behavior. Here we see the table showing different prices of pizza, from $15 to $11, and the corresponding quantity of pizzas demanded when the price of hamburger is $1.50. The graph shows this relationship, with each point on the grid representing a specific price-quantity combination. By considering these points, we create the demand curve. For instance, at a price of $14, 55 pizzas are demanded each week, represented by point A. Now, let's explore how changes in another variable, such as the price of hamburgers, can shift the demand curve. If the price of hamburgers increases from $1.50 to $2, the demand for pizzas increases at each price level. This change is reflected in the new demand schedule and the shift to demand curve 2. For example, at the same pizza price of $14, the quantity demanded increases from 55 to 60 pizzas per week, shifting from point A on demand curve 1 to point B on demand curve 2. Conversely, if the price of hamburger decreases from $1.50 to $1, the demand for pizzas decreases at each price level, causing a shift to the left to demand curve 3. If we start from the demand curve 1 at a pizza price of $12, where 65 pizzas are demanded weekly, point C, a decrease in the price of hamburgers to $1 results in a decrease in the quantity of pizzas demanded to 60 per week, point D, shifting the demand curve leftward to demand curve 3. In economics, understanding the relationship between variables is crucial. We often look at how changes in one variable affect another. Well, let's start with a positive relationship. In a positive relationship between two economic variables, as one variable increases, the other variable also increases. For example, consider the relationship between disposable personal income and consumption spending. This figure shows data over several years, with disposable personal income on the right from $10,722 billion in 2009 to $11,931 billion in 2012. Correspondingly, consumption spending also increases from $9,846 billion to $11,120 billion over the same period. Graphing these values, we see an upward sloping line, illustrating that disposable personal income in the United States has increased, so has consumption spending. This positive relationship highlights how increased income generally leads to higher spending. Using graphs to draw conclusions about cause and effect can be hazardous. In panel A, we see that there are fewer leaves on the trees in neighborhoods when many homes have fires burning in their fireplaces. Well, we cannot draw the conclusion that using fireplaces causes the leaves to fall because we have an omitted variable, the season of the year. In panel B, we see that more lawnmowers are used in a neighborhood during the times when the grass grows rapidly, and fewer lawnmowers are used when the grass grows slowly. Well, concluding that the lawnmowers causes the grass to grow faster would be making the error of reverse causality. The relationship between two variables is linear when it can be represented by a straight line. Well, few economic relationships are actually linear. However, it is often useful to approximate a nonlinear relationship with a linear relationship line. In this class, we will generally use the straight line approach to make examples of the concepts we discuss. In later levels of economics, we consider curved lines to express relationships between variables. The relationship between the quantity of iPhones produced and the total cost of production is curved rather than linear. In the graph moving from point A to point B, the quantity produced increased by 1 million iPhones, while the total cost of production increased by $50 million. However, as we move from point C to point D, the change in the quantity remains the same, 1 million iPhones, but the change in the total cost of production is much larger, $250 million. This indicates that the slope has increased. We can approximate the slope over the section of the curve by measuring it as if that section were linear. Between C and D, the slope is greater than between A and B, meaning the curve is steeper between C and D. Another way to measure the slope of a nonlinear curve is to measure the slope of the line that is tangent to the point where we want to know the slope. In the graph, we can see that the slope of the tangent line at point B is 75, and the slope of the tangent line at point C is 150. This method allows us to measure the slope of the curve more accurately at specific points. Formula for percentage change between two variables for any two periods is expressed as the difference between the variables divided by the value at the beginning. It might be the expression of your GPA from your first college year to your GPA earned last term. It results in a decimal number, but multiplying by 100 expresses it as a percent. Look at that! You just increased your GPA by 35%, and now you can prove it. The area of a rectangle is calculated by multiplying its base by its height. In economics, total revenue can be represented as the area of the rectangle where the base is the quantity of goods sold and the height is the price per unit. For example, if a firm sells 125,000 bottles at $2 each, the total revenue is 125,000 bottles multiplied by $2 per bottle, equating to $250,000. This total revenue is visually represented by the green shaded rectangle on the graph. It illustrates that total revenue is simply the product of price and quantity. The area of a triangle is calculated by using the formula 1/2 base times height. In this example, the blue shaded area triangle has a base of 25,000, calculated from 150,000 minus 125,000. The height is 50 cents, calculated from $2 minus $1.50. Therefore, the area of the triangle is 1/2 25,000 times 50 cents, which equals $6,250. This geometric application is useful in economics to illustrate changes in demand when prices fluctuate. We will be revisiting these types of calculations frequently in this class. When working with formulas, it is essential to keep a few key principles in mind. 1. Understand the concept. Make sure you have a clear grasp of economic concept that the formula represents. 2. Choose the right formula, ensuring you're applying the correct formula to the specific problem you're solving. 3. Verify the result. Check that the calculated number is economically reasonable. For instance, if you calculate a firm's revenue and end up with a negative number, there's something likely in error. Always cross-check your data. Review your findings, and ensure your results are consistent with real-world perceptions. When in doubt, discuss your results with someone else. Explaining your findings to others can help you catch errors and gain better understanding of your results. Don't hesitate to ask me for help. I'm here to support your learning journey in economics. Now, it's your turn to give it a try.
Economics is a field full of misconceptions, and it's important to address them early. Many people believe economics is only about money, but in reality, it's about how we allocate limited resources. Another common misconception is confusing positive analysis, which explains what is, and normative analysis, which expresses what ought to be. Additionally, some terms like utility and marginal cost don't mean what we assume from everyday language. We often overlook how incentives influence behavior, assuming that people or businesses always act randomly. Finally, economic models simplify the world. They aren't perfect, but they help us understand complex systems. Microeconomics is also dynamic, adapting to changes in behavior, technology, and market conditions. Microeconomics zooms in on individual decision-making. It helps us understand how consumers choose between goods, how firms set prices, and how trade-offs impact choices. Incentives, such as sales discounts or higher wages, drive these decisions. Microeconomics also explains how competition shapes markets, like how a farmer's prices for produce might be influenced by what their competitors charge. Finally, it gives us practical tools to analyze real-world issues, such as budgeting, pricing strategies, and the best way to allocate resources efficiently. To wrap up, microeconomics focuses on choices. Producers decide what to make and how to distribute it, while consumers decide what to buy. Incentives and preferences drive these decisions, creating dynamic and ever-changing markets. Although economic models are simplified, they are essential for analyzing behavior and market outcomes. And remember, markets don't stay static. They evolve as new technologies, policies, and preferences shape our world. Microeconomics equips us with the tools to adapt to these changes and make better decisions. In this microeconomics class, we will delve into how individual consumers and firms make decisions, and how these decisions interact in the marketplace. This class will provide you with the tools to analyze and understand the economic forces at play in everyday transactions